They called it the fastest conviction in county history. The headlines loved it. The town slept better. The judge smiled for the cameras. But the truth? The truth was still sitting quietly in a dark cell, waiting for someone to listen, because they got the wrong man. And by the time the real killer confessed, the damage was already done. Oak Ridge, Virginia, 2010. A small town surrounded by quiet woods and louder rumors. When Clara Bennett, a 31-year-old nurse, was found dead in her apartment, the news spread faster than wildfire. She was kind, active in her church, engaged to be married. Within days, police had a suspect. Michael Trent, her neighbor, 28, quiet, worked nights at a delivery company. He had a record: petty theft, one-bar fight, nothing violent. But he lived alone, and when police searched his apartment, they found a torn piece of fabric that matched Clara's curtain, and a bloodstain on his shoes. The town didn't wait for a trial. They had already decided. He did it. Detectives called it clean work. No confusion, no mystery. Even the judge, Harold Mathers, said during arraignment, "This shouldn't take long." He was right, it didn't. The trial lasted 5 days. 5. That's all it took to decide the rest of Michael Trent's life. The prosecution painted him as jealous, unstable, obsessed. They said he had been rejected by Clara, that he watched her from his balcony, that he snapped. The defense barely stood a chance. No money, no expert witnesses, just one overworked public defender named Kara Ellis. And a single plea: he didn't do this. But in Oak Ridge, innocence didn't trend. Closure did, when the judge asked the jury for their verdict. It took them 43 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Life without parole. Judge Mathers nodded once and said, "Justice served." The gallery applauded. The cameras flashed, and Michael Trent was led away. Confused, silent, still wearing the same shoes they said proved his guilt. Prison is loud the first night. Then it gets quieter. Then it gets into your bones. Michael spent 7 years there. No fights, no complaints. He worked in a library, wrote letters no one answered, appealed twice, denied both times. His lawyer, Kara Ellis, moved to Richmond. She said she'd never stop looking for proof. But by year 7, even she had stopped calling. Then one night, a guard slid an envelope under Michael's door. No name, no return address, just a note. She wasn't alone that night. Check the alley behind Rose Street. That was it. No signature. Just that. Michael read it 50 times before he slept. Meanwhile, Kara Ellis had changed jobs. She was now working in the state attorney's office. Ironic, since she once defended men like Michael. But she never forgot him. When a note reached her desk, forwarded anonymously, she froze. The handwriting looked feminine. Sharp curves, tight pressure, like someone trying not to shake. She drove to Oak Ridge that weekend. The alley behind Rose Street hadn't changed much. Graffiti, dumpsters, the hum of a broken streetlight. But in one corner behind a locked gate, she found something the original detectives had never mentioned. A security camera. Old, rusted, half buried in ivy. The building it belonged to had closed in 2009. A small printing shop. But inside that camera, she found a miracle. The memory card was still there. She sent it to a forensic lab in D.C. The data was damaged, but not destroyed. And what they recovered changed everything. The footage was grainy, black and white, but clear enough to show 2 figures outside Clara's building. The timestamp, 11:47 p.m., the same night she died. One of them was clearly Clara. The other? A man, taller, wearing a delivery jacket. But not Michael's. Different logo, different build. He followed her to the back door. They argued. She pushed him. He grabbed her arm. Then the footage cut out. The tech analyst paused the video. He zoomed in on the delivery logo. It wasn't Michael's company. It was Eastway Freight, a rival firm based 2 counties over. And that's when Kara remembered something. During the trial, the prosecution said Michael's blood was found on his shoes. But the lab that tested them, Eastway Freight handled their transport. Someone had tampered with evidence. Judge Harold Mathers retired 5 years after the trial. Nice house, nice pension, but the Marlowe case, the Trent case, never left him. He told himself it was solid, told himself he followed the law. But at night, he kept hearing one line from the defense. "You're sentencing the wrong man." When Kara called him to meet, he didn't hesitate. They met at a diner off Route 17. She placed a folder on the table. The footage, the lab report, the delivery records. He didn't speak for a full minute. Then he said quietly, "Tell me what I'm looking at." "You're looking," she said, "at reasonable doubt, at least, and at most, a ruined life." He rubbed his eyes. "What do you want me to do?" "Help me reopen it," she said. "Your word still carries weight in this county." He nodded once, then again, like a man realizing his reflection had lied to him for years. When Ethan Dyer was arrested, he didn't even deny it. He was 51, a former Eastway Freight driver, who'd worked routes near Clara's neighborhood in 2010. He'd been arrested on an unrelated assault charge in another state, and his DNA was entered into a national database. It matched a partial print, found years ago on Clara's broken necklace. Back then, police had dismissed it as a handling error. Now they knew better. During interrogation, Ethan said 6 words that froze the room. She wasn't supposed to fight back. He said he'd followed her home after she reported him for harassment at the clinic. He confronted her. Things escalated, and when she screamed, he panicked. He wiped down everything he could. But when police showed up the next morning, they already had a suspect. Michael Trent, the quiet guy next door. "Best mistake I ever made," Ethan said coldly. "They never even looked at me." The news spread fast. Oak Ridge killer caught after 13 years. But the town didn't cheer this time. They'd celebrated 2 early ones before. Judge Mathers called a special hearing. Gray hair, slow walk, but still carrying that courtroom voice. Michael Trent was brought in, handcuffed, eyes down. He hadn't smiled in years. The judge looked at him and said, "Mr. Trent, I believe we owe you something we can't return." Kara read the evidence into record. The video, the DNA, the confession. When she finished, the room was silent. The judge stood. He cleared his throat and said, "Case number 10-024 is hereby vacated. Conviction overturned. Michael Trent, you are free." For a second, Michael didn't move, didn't react, like freedom was just another rumor. Then his knees gave out, and the courtroom saw what 7 years of silence does to a man. Reporters called it the case that shamed Oak Ridge. But Michael didn't want headlines. He wanted quiet. He moved 2 towns over, got a job fixing old typewriters. Didn't talk much, didn't look back. The state issued an apology, a check for $460,000, one for every day he spent behind bars. It didn't buy back the 7 years, didn't fix the dreams, didn't erase the label. Judge Mathers resigned the next week. He released a public statement that ended with one sentence: "Justice without patience is just pride in a robe." He stopped showing up in public after that. But Kara Ellis? She didn't stop. Months later, Kara visited the county evidence archive. She wanted to understand how the system had failed so cleanly. Inside a dusty storage room, she found something she wasn't supposed to. A file labeled Trent Supplement A. Inside, a handwritten note dated 2 days before Michael's trial. Found secondary sample inconsistent with primary. Supervisor advised to omit until retest. The signature, Detective Paul Givens, the same detective who built the original case. The note was buried, never logged, never disclosed. In other words, they knew the blood on Michael's shoes didn't match the victim, and they hid it. She turned the page. The lab slip attached listed the true match. Unknown male, profile now linked to Ethan Dyer. Her hand shook. The system hadn't just failed, it had chosen to fail. She called the DA's office. The answer was simple. We don't comment on closed cases, but some things don't stay buried. Kara drove out to see Michael one last time. He was fixing an old Remington in his small shop, radio humming softly. We looked up. He smiled for the first time in years. "You found more, didn't you?" he asked. She nodded. They knew, Michael. They knew before the verdict. He stared at the floor, then said something she'd never forget. "Don't hate them. They needed someone to blame. And I was convenient." She tried to argue. He stopped her. "Do one thing for me," he said. "When you tell this story someday, don't end it with the word justice. End it with truth. It lasts longer." A month later, Judge Mathers received a letter. No name, no address, just a single line. "The truth doesn't need your permission anymore." Inside was a photo of Michael standing outside his shop, smiling faintly. Underneath, someone had written in pen, "Free. Finally." The judge kept it in his drawer until the day he died. Today, Oak Ridge keeps one reminder of that case. A plaque in the courthouse hallway. It doesn't list the judge, or the jury, or even the lawyers. It lists a single sentence. "May we never be too proud to be wrong." Every new judge walks past it on their first day. Most don't stop to read it, but a few do, and those few remember why it's there. Because justice without patience is just ego in a suit. And truth takes its time. 3 years later, when Ethan Dyer finally spoke to the parole board, he refused remorse. He said something cold, something that echoed through the room. "You think I ruined that man's life, but you did. You believed me before I ever spoke." The board denied him parole, but his words lingered. In headlines, in hearts, in the spaces between silence and guilt. Kara read that quote and closed her laptop. She whispered the same thing Michael once said. "Don't end it with justice. End it with truth." And maybe that's all stories like this really are. Truth arriving late, knocking softly, after everyone stopped listening. This is Hidden Case Files, True Crime, where minutes matter, where silence speaks louder than verdicts, and where truth, no matter how long it takes, always finds its way back to the courtroom. Subscribe, because somewhere another story just like this one is waiting to be heard.